Hey team, and welcome to Glendale Heights in London. This is a project that AKS started back in 2021, July of 2021. I'm here with Kevin this morning, and Kevin's going to take us on a tour and show us a lot of good things. And we're also going to learn about some things that AKS wants to improve in the future. So we're going to do a tour of the project. As you can already see behind me, it's a pretty nice place, and the client has done a nice job of decorating it. It's a retirement building. They call it a village, actually, and as you'll see, there's quite a bit to the building. It goes far beyond just rooms for the retired people, as you'll see. So yeah, welcome, and we'll get started. We're actually up on the 8th floor right now on the restaurant, and we'll work our way down through the building. We'll hand it off to Kev. He's going to take us on a tour. Kev, when did you start here?
August of 21.
Yeah, so that's been a while.
It's been a
right?
while, yeah.
Yeah, and you probably wish it was going to be another while, right?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. 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 So I think Kev, we're up here in the restaurant, and you can see some of our work here for sure. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and some of the good things here. Obviously, things look pretty good.
Yeah. Up here we had, there's quite a bit of work up here actually with bulkheads, radiant panels, and also acoustical panels. Kitchen, we have FRP. So there's a lot of detail in here, and we had some guys come in and do all the acoustical panels at the top for a day. Well, they were a day and a half. And it's got all aluminum trim on it, so it's a lot of work to it. So they did really well. And there's a couple washrooms up here that we had to do. I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna say it.
No. What was it?
No. It's just with the trades working in there. We did some framing a couple times. Had to reframe. Just working with everybody else, so it took a bit of time.
I think something we probably forgot about. What about the outside of the building here?
Oh yeah, outside we had the parapets up top to do. Above the windows, there's 2 layers of framing, dense glass. So that was all on a what was it, a 140-foot boom?
Yeah, exactly. Like
So-
we're up 8 stories here, and we actually had to get a unique piece of equipment to reach in to do the framing and the exterior sheathing on this section here. Like we're right, Kev. It was
Yep.
pretty much this
center section
here.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't remember there were some challenges with the framing.
There was challenges with the dimensions, the ironwork where it sat. It actually went pretty good, other than the center where we had to get the big boom. So,
yeah,
the perimeter over here.
Once we got at it, it went well though.
Yep.
Yeah. I know there were some changes
in the window
to the
details,
design, and some figuring out on how the windows were going to fit with our work, and how that was all going to get together. But a big challenge was obviously the access, because not only because you can't actually get at this part of the building, the equipment actually has to lean over a 3-story section that's well below us, and had to go up and lean in to reach this section. So that was a bit of a challenge there. I know it was a bit of back and forth. Is there anything, do you think AKS could have done anything differently through that process to help with that or mitigate it, or?
Well, I think the only issue is putting the ceiling in too early before trades weren't done up above. We should have waited, but they wanted everything done, so we had to keep going.
Yeah.
Um, that would have been the only thing. Whole
Ah,
kitchen wall, to me, there's a fire rated concrete wall in behind, furred out wall for mechanical, plumbing, and accessories in the back wall. Um, and then they called out the plumbers use Wurzboro, contractor used wood backing, and we didn't have it insulated. And they said it needed Roxol insulation. So we had to redo that. We had to take all the board off, the stainless off, and we did it all in what? How long were we on that? Well, Ken, you were here. Clarence, you were here. What was it? 2 days? Yeah, but went together good after.
um, what would you say? What could AKS have done differently or better? Like I know a little bit about it. It's a convoluted story, so it's pretty hard to just pinpoint where the you got multiple different inspectors involved, multiple different trades involved here. It got a little bit messy, but at the end of the day, um, I think it came down to insulation not being in the wall,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't make any sense to anybody. But that's what they picked on, and I just think what can AKS do differently in this case, if anything.
I think one thing would be to ask more questions,
Yep.
um, which we had so far, but then there was misunderstanding from everybody. Like it wasn't just AKS; it was everybody.
Yeah, I think the big one there is clarity. If it's a little bit not totally clear or maybe doesn't make sense, ask the question. This one here, if you notice, the corners are stainless. They actually did ask us to. We typically don't do that normally, but they did ask us to supply stainless corners versus the FRP corners. So that's something that we did take on this project. That we probably the first time I think we ever did supply stainless corners for something like that. So that worked out pretty good. We worked with the local supplier in Guelph, and he looked after us in a timely fashion. Um, I think Kev, tell us a little bit about the FRP corners, so that initially were scheduled to be here.
So we did this in May, I think it was May or June, and ordered five FRP corners, and we were middle of September, still didn't have them. They couldn't get them. So then that's when the stainless part came up. So we went to stainless, and the day after we installed the stainless, we got our FRP corners.
Yeah, it's a good example of the supply chains out there that have become, especially when you get into the specialty products. I think Kev, it sounds like we can't be in front of that soon enough.
No.
I think is what we learned here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, and sometimes you assume something got done, and sometimes that bites us too. We think something got taken care of, and um, it got to the point where these corners actually had to be on to achieve a certain level of occupancy in the building. So it was a little bit of a mad scramble, and thank goodness that we were able to find us a supplier of the stainless corners to bail us out at the last minute. But yeah, just another thing to note when we have specialty products on a project, to be on early with our suppliers and make sure things are lined up.
So we're in one of the units on the eighth floor. It's one of the bigger units, 2 bedroom, with an ensuite, walk-in closet in the one. Um, this unit on the eighth floor was very challenging. We had multiple water leaks. Um, We've reboarded the entrance, the bathroom twice. What else? Then we had the floor base issue where our tapers normally an inch, 2 inches off the floor, and here we had to finish right to the floor. Um, it's a very fine base, and so you have to finish it. So we had to go back and do that around the bases. They were roughly a floor, 3 days a floor, going around fixing all the bases and all the units when we started. Some were a little more than others, um, depending on how many corners and angles and stuff there was. So
The good thing is, I'd say, caught it relatively early, Kev.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, a problem is leaving the drywall off the floor too. Is part of the problem, right? So if
Yeah.
the drywall was too far off the floor, then you got to fill it with something. And
we had a few units like that.
yeah, yeah. Obviously, early on in the job was a bit of a problem, but caught it in a reasonable amount of time.
Yep.
Got the board guys on the program. Taping as much as we could. But I'm thinking in that, what would you say was maybe the breakdown, or how could we manage that a little differently or better in the future?
There again, knowing the products that come in, what other trades have to use to finish off the job properly. Sometimes that you don't have to worry about that at all. So these units here, we have the bay windows that we had to do, and this is all the way down. The beginning, again, we had issues with the concrete. We solved that problem, and they came out good, but there was still issues that some of the, don't have to be big. There was still some issues, and we had done everything right, but the windows and the brick didn't line up on the outside. But they actually made it work on the outside with the brickies. So, but that there is all heavy gauge framing, and it was third floor and up, all the way.
So everything had to line up from the third floor going all the way up. We had to line it up.
Yep.
Vertically as well as horizontally. Things had to work out. Well, actually, this is a stucco. So one of the challenges here is the outside goes from a stucco finish to a brick finish, and it meets on a 45. Like it's quite a challenging detail, and I think. I don't know, looking back, Kev, any thoughts on how, like obviously there's multiple other items involved here, like brick, stucco, like I said, outside flashings, the windows. I mean, there's so many different components coming together. What would be your thoughts on if we get into a situation like that, like this again, is there something the AKS could have done differently or better, or you think it kind of ran about as good as it could?
Well, I think this one ran as good as it could. We tried a couple things and it didn't work out because of the concrete, how much the slab was up and down.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of variables to work with.
Yeah. We tried prefabbing a couple, but it didn't work out. So we had to stick frame all of it.
Yeah.
So
it was probably a little bit of a complicated one to try the prefab on. But I think what stuck out to me, and again, we want to talk about what AKS can do. But what I found, I didn't find that there was the whole thing wasn't thought out very well after our work was done. Like nobody was checking to see how the brick was going to interface, where the windows were going to sit. So I think if we get involved with something like that, my suggestion would be to say, hey, Mr. General Contractor, let's do a little powwow out here, do a mock-up from start to finish, not just our product, and make sure everybody's on the same page. Um, Sometimes we have the luxury of having forward thinking, but sometimes we don't. So I think in this case, maybe some initiative on our side and say, hey, no, we want to see this all go together. And I know you did some mock-ups in some other areas, like when we did the bay windows. We'll probably look at those later.
Yep.
And said, no, here's one. How's this look? Everything fit together? Yes, it's go time. And I think this one here, again, it's was a little bit out of our control, but I think moving forward, I would say, hey, let's take this right to the finish line, draw the windows out, draw where the brick hits, and make sure everything fits good. But once, I know these were always painful to do. This is obviously our third project doing this style of bay window, and but you had a pretty good flow going, Kev.
Yeah, no, it went
there.
well.
Yeah, yeah. I think what was the good part in there? I know there was a few things that you did in that whole process. Just tell us a little bit. I know this is going back quite some time, memory wise, but I know you had some. What are some of the things you had going that made it successful? Well, if I remember, like you had all the different pieces
we had all
laid out. Like
yeah.
one of the things we want to do at AKS, make sure that the guys have their stuff in front of them.
Yeah.
And you had everything ordered per floor. You had it put in the right spots.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
Yep. No, and then having the right guys going and doing
but you got into a routine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Repetitive. This is how we're going to do it. Everyone's going to be the same, and off we go.
Yeah.
So.
Because at first we had a few different guys trying it, and once we got the right guys on it, it started flowing a lot better.
Yeah.
Another thing that, after the fact, I should have been paying attention to the details in the units. So for here, like we got the kitchen, basically that back wall, we had finished taping 100% and it's all covered. So some of the issues that were in behind, they didn't label it as a deficiency. They just said, hey, can you make this look good? And after the fact, I'm going, why did we worry about that with tile and cupboards and everything? So even looking at the specs on walls, like when we go downstairs, there's some walls that are completely covered and we finished taped and we didn't need to. So right there, that would save on manpower. I don't know about the estimating part. We estimated to finish it right through likely, but still we don't need to waste our time with the manpower doing those things.
So we're just standing outside we're actually standing in the 8th floor corridor. And here I think is something that AKS has moved forward well. Not just on project, I'm happy to report that it's also happening on others. But Kev, tell us a little bit about this detail right here. Here and here.
I thought you said something good.
It is good. No.
These door details are a nightmare.
Why?
Just the way they design it.
Okay.
If you go into a suite, you can see at the corner, we've got 1 inch.
Well, okay, there's one thing there. Yeah, I was thinking more the
fire rating?
Well, no, just
the corners?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like notice that these corners are square?
Thank God you picked a good one. No,
come on.
Kidding, no, and we had actually, Ken, I think you went through some of them and picked out some of the corners. We had issues lower floors with them being square and whatnot. But we had to actually go and get the contractor because they had some of the backing in there pushing out our walls. Yeah. And we had to get them to shave it off. And of course, first thing they did was they said it was our fault, the drywall and the bead. And then when we took it apart, it was like, oh, wait a minute, the backing's pushing our stud out. Um, so yeah, we stayed on top of it and well, missed a couple,
Yeah,
but
but what did we do with the framing here, Kev, to mitigate that whole thing?
stud.
Did you not
Oh,
turn the
changed it.
studs this
Yes,
way?
yeah, we
Yeah,
turned the studs the
yeah,
other way, so the lock-in
right.
came across
Yeah.
instead of going
So
straight
now,
through.
yeah, so
Yeah,
just so now when they put the backing in, it's a little bit more difficult for them, but they
yep,
can't take this stud and bulge it
yep,
out.
yep.
And we've had some pretty significant problems in the past with that situation. What was the other thing that you did, Kev, that I thought was really good? Think about when at the drywalling stage when it got to drywalling.
Oh, with that strip in before the doors
Yeah,
went
but who
in.
did that?
Yeah, Ahmed did most of them, and then we had Juan started doing them up on the upper floors.
I seem to remember. I thought you had you actually had two guys. They just went ahead and did all this detail work down the
Yeah,
corridor.
that's right.
Yeah,
Harrison and
yeah,
Nazir did some too.
yeah.
So
So what? Yeah.
so
So
this
what?
this little strip of drywall was in behind the door frame already done
Yeah,
before we carried on through
yeah,
the corridors.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on this project, Kevin had you know guys doing piecework, and sometimes things get a little bit lost and a little bit sloppy. So what Kevin did is he put a couple of guys, showed them how he wants this whole thing to look because this is a fire rated assembly. So you got drywall that has to go in behind the frames. It's got to lock in the corners here. It's got to be square. You got fire taping at the top that you have to. There's a lot of moving parts in one little area. So one of the things that Kevin did was actually dedicate one or two guys just to do that task. And then when the main board crew came through the corridor, they were just able to literally fly down the corridor and not have to get worried about all these little details. And things got done well. So I thought that was a yeah, it was good. I think, but getting back to here's another thing that I think upfront conversations might help. Like you see this detail here where we have door frames right up against the wall. Like either put it up against the wall or leave a big space would be my suggestion. But I know on this project the dimensions are so tight that literally you can't even move the door a quarter of an inch for fear of being outside of regulations.
So we're on second floor, and this is called Emma's Dining. Um, there was a lot of bulkheads, a lot of door openings, window openings, again with the trim and backing and everything. It was a tough go with that. But we managed to get this ahead of schedule and get it done. Um, Except for the kitchen area, which there was issues with the hood. But after a while, it finally came through that we could do the grid and got it all done, so they could get the radiant panels in, and it came together pretty good at the end. There again, you look at that back wall. It's all covered in tile, cupboards. There's nothing exposed at all, and we went and finished it all. Finished taped, everything.
Well, we know we know that you enjoy taping, Kevin.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
okay. No, good point though, right? Yeah, there's a lot. That's yeah, 30 feet of wall, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, it looks good, Kev. I gotta say, like like things look pretty tight, right? Crisp,
Getting
clean,
there.
square, bulkheads in line. Um,
Yep.
well done.
So this is the shaft wall right here, which we were fortunate enough to get this side of the shaft and the back of the shaft, so this unit can be finished off all at the same time. This one has 3 layers of drywall on it, on the back side and this side, and then the front side has 2. So I think we missed one floor where we didn't catch that, and then we caught it after that it was supposed to be 3 layers. So there again, you think all your shafts double layer. This one was a little hiccup because it had 3 layers, because it's in a unit that's the wall's exposed. There's no chase wall or anything in front of it. So from this point here across is a shower on the backside, 3 5/8 framed. Then it changes to 1 5 framing up to so much point, and then it changes back to 3 5. And there's a stupid 32-degree angle.
No, I think it's more like 5, Kev.
Yeah, 5. But yeah, they're fun. Not really. Inside, the 1 5 is for this lovely, hello, pocket door. So there's a bit of work to these. So tapers always have an issue with it, and it's a problem. So
Yeah. So how did you finally got it? You got it to a point where it was successful, Kev, right? I know there was a bit of work, but
yeah.
take us through like how did that all evolve, and who was all like how did that whole thing, like you got a pretty challenging piece of, like, a lot of stuff going on, like that door is set in, like there's a bulkhead above that, again, different wall type, like there's so much stuff going on here.
I think the big thing is the taping. The framing part of it wasn't that much of a problem. You had the 3 5 bulkhead above with the 1 5. The drywall, again, they got to have that to get the angle. The drywall has to line up perfect. We had a few spots where, you had to take the drywaller and he put bevels in the angle. So we had to get them to change that. And then the taping part was trying to get it exactly right. So we tried a couple different things, and it seemed like the no coat was the only thing that worked.
But if I remember, Kev, it came down to, like, the drywall had to be pretty much perfect. Right?
Yeah.
Like if the drywall was anything less than perfect,
Yeah.
the taper didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, even when everything was perfect, the taper had a challenge to make
Yep.
to make it look good, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, Kev, what might be your approach to a scenario like this? Like, how does AKS move this from, the layout to what we see here now, with less pain
Yeah. There's nothing really you can change with layout and framing. It's got to come down to the boardman and tapers.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely,
Yeah.
right? It's how you execute,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, like, how did some of the units end up with the drywall not being in the right spot, like, for instance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was 2 different crews. Like, one guy was worried about it, and his other crews, they weren't quite as worried about it. So
Yeah.
it's just putting them up to speed on how it had to be done.
For sure.
So
Yeah. So, just thinking, kind of how we talked about addressing the work that we did around the doors and the corridors. Maybe in the future we assign a crew that's all they do,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
For something like that might be one solution. I don't know, Kev, what else I know you went through a bit of pain with this, and I mean, we had good trades here. That was a nice thing. When Kevin recognized that, hey, this needs to go to a different level, the trades were actually quite helpful. The boardman was quite willing to go and repair what he needed to repair, and the taper was quite helpful in getting us to the finish line. So we had some good people to solve the problem. That was for sure. Yeah.
So now we're in the conservatory, and we just planted all the plants last week.
That's AKS's horticultural division.
Horticultural division, yeah. So I was shocked. I didn't think that this was getting filled with dirt. I thought it was all buckets sitting inside with stone and whatnot. But yeah, it's got a rubber membrane inside and filled with dirt.
What was our part in this, Kev?
So we had framing all around the front of the stone. It's 20 gauge 3 and 5. Uh, the drawings didn't have the exact measurements, so we had to go to AutoCAD and or I'm not sure where you got the measurements from.
Yeah, the way the architect drew it was not the way I would lay out a curved wall, but nonetheless, we got there,
Yeah,
got the layout done, and then so not only the framing on a curve, heavy gauge framing and track and all that. There was also what's on the surface here, Kev?
cement board.
Yeah, yeah. So trying to wrap cement board around some pretty
Around it.
tight radiuses. Yeah. So
Yep.
yeah, it looked yeah. That one there's got a nice curvature to it too. That was kind of fun.
Yep. And then bulkheads all the way up to the skylight. Um, and then a waterfall over here, which isn't quite in yet, but that back wall is all plywood and blue skinned, and those are real plants growing up the wall.
Oh, is that really?
Yeah.
Wow. Be a lot of oxygen in this room.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these bulkheads too. This is not just a straight bulkhead. This is
No.
broken up by multiple
Yes.
beams and
Yeah.
and multiple beams actually. I think. Right?
Yeah, and this one
Yeah.
here, they had concrete core slab hanging over, which was an issue. So we had to build a bulkhead underneath it, and then the one above to keep it in line.
As you know, four guys from AKS went down to Pennsylvania and did a training course on expansion joints. And actually, come on, Graham, you were one of the gentlemen that was involved there. What was one of the parts of before you could even think about installing an expansion joint? What was pretty much critical? What needed to be?
You gotta make sure everything's level first,
Yeah.
otherwise it's gonna affect the whole
Yeah,
process.
thank you.
Yeah.
Like whether level or what they called it a block out. It depends on the style of expansion joint.
Yeah.
So obviously we didn't have this knowledge when we did these joints. Well, we knew that things weren't correct, but moving forward, if when AKS installs expansion joints, there's going to be a fair bit of pre-work, actually pre-conversations to start to set up the expectations of how everything has to be in place. You're talking concrete slabs that are all over the place, right? So you do have to make sure that the concrete is in a good place, is rectified. It is almost impossible not to do some kind of prep work in order to make the whole installation successful, as you found out, Kev. Because I know they had to grind floors, and then we had to get the flooring contractor involved to do extra skimming. All kinds of stuff was going on, and I mean we got it done, but we're definitely going to do that process a whole lot better in the future. That's for sure. Now that we have the knowledge to do it. Yeah. This up here, that's largely is a cosmetic item, as is this. What's above there, Kev? There's a roof above
That's
here.
a bulkhead. Oh,
Yeah,
this
but,
is a roof.
but the
yeah.
actual fire rating. So
Yeah.
so not all expansion joints are fire rated, but in this case they are fire rated. The roof above us is fire rated, so there had to be another joint above this that was a totally different design in order to maintain the fire rating, as well as below this plate is also like a fire blanket that had to get installed prior to this plate being the finished product. So quite a few different steps in doing it all, and you had steel column in behind here. There's a steel column behind there. You had to work around and run it. Quite a bit of quite a bit of work involved in making it all good.
So here we are in the social club, and there's a lot of detail in this one and some copper ceiling tiles. Had to work with trim guys really good on this one with the ceilings to get the bulkheads. All the cove up there, our wall mold sits right against the cove. So in the full tiles, there's no cuts or anything, and it had to fit in perfectly. So it was a lot of work in here. It came out pretty good.
Did the layout need to be good, Kev?
Yep, 100%. Within a 16th, right, Nick?
Yeah.
First try.
Yeah, actually, it was the first try.
Yes,
right?
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, as you can see, each of these pods has to be exactly the right size for the ceiling tiles to fit in. And as Kevin mentioned, our wall mold is actually stapled against the crown molding. So there was a lot of coordination that had happened between framers and the trimmers. And then obviously, well, actually, once that was set, then the T-bar went in relatively easy.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks great. Looks fabulous, Cal. Really good.
So this is the library, and in here it's all heavy gauge framing. We had the trusses to frame, um, and then the bulkheads to frame in underneath the heavy gauge framing. It went together pretty good, actually. I think we were a week. It might have been a week
Yeah.
framing this.
No, the framing went well. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, this library is like a building inside of the
Inside a
building,
building.
right? I
Yep.
mean, you'll probably see pictures later on, but all that sloped roof, that was all our work, right?
Yep.
As these supporting walls. So you had angles, pitches. You got all kinds of, and it's all engineered
Yep.
as to what size of members we had to use. But there's a few things. There was a few dimensions to pay attention to and make sure everything worked. And, yeah, again,
All I can say is with Tacoma, do not use 1.25 inch. Make sure you use 1.5 inch studs.
1 5/8 flange, versus 1 1/4
Yes.
flange. Yeah.
So we're standing in the clear story, and Ken, take it away. Come on in here, Ken.
What would you like to know, Kevin?
So Ken basically framed the whole upper half and what about 90% of the lower half? 95?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what were the challenges? What do you think?
A little flat ceiling up there. You gotta basically try to figure it out. Using Chicago, it's not always easy to put it together.
Yeah, so you got a hex bar, right? You got a six-sided little room that goes right up to, how high is that? 55 feet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So, as you can see, the angles, the bulkheads, the slopes, that was our good man. Ken had a lot to do with putting this all together.
Just
So,
in case.
today we get to look at the fruits of his labor, and I think it looks awesome. And
Thanks,
does
Ken.
that make the drywall look good?
Oh yeah, it went easy after that.
You know, and then what about the taping? Tell us a little about the taping, Kev.
Who did we have up at the very top?
The Mexican guy.
Who did the majority of this though?
So up in the center tower was one of Ed's guys.
One of Ed's guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then did he do the lower ceiling too?
No, Darren.
No, Darren did that.
Yeah.
And then we had a guy come in and he did the taping up top and the ceilings and the slopes here.
Was that not Darren?
Darren.
Yeah. So I think again, I mean, you can't see it all, but and actually this ceiling doesn't see a lot of light, but when the light comes in and shines down the walls, it's perfect. Like it's really good. And I think Kev, it's again, if I remember, you basically had one guy doing all that work, right?
Taping, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We had one guy, and I mean, we were fortunate that he was good. But the nice thing is, you were able to keep that guy on that task from start to finish,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's what made it successful. Um, and today we get to see the results of that, right?
Yep. So now we're in the bistro, and in here we've got bulkheads, medallions that we had to install, radiant panels around the whole outside. A lot of detail in here. As we come out, there's heavy gauge bulkheads. It's all covered in wood trim. A lot of work right there.
Yeah. So inside those millwork and masonry columns are actually built up steel columns of
Steel
steel
columns
stud.
post, yeah.
So all this entire structure here actually rests on steel stud framing. Actually, this entire structure is steel stud framing
Yep.
covered in millwork.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's all structural work, all designed by an engineer, of course, and put together. And again, Ken had a lot to do with putting all this together too.
Yep.
So as you can see how things are straight and square. All right, team. Well, here we are. We're outside now, and just one last item, or a couple of last items. We had talked about the bay window framing earlier in our discussion. So this is what it looks like from the outside, and you can see those little sloped roofs there on the ground floor. That's all heavy gauge framing. We'll attach some pictures for you guys to see how it looks like before. But again, a lot of intricate framing, Kev?
Oh,
And
yeah.
angles and
Yep.
fastening and clips and engineering and a lot of stuff going on, right? So, and then as you can see there, we were talking about how everything has to line up,
Up the
so
towers, yeah.
that all has to go in a reasonably good line and have everything fit together. So,
Yep.
a lot of moving parts here, and I don't know, Kev. You know what? It looks really good.
Yeah, it came out good.
I think you did a great job of managing a lot of stuff. We had a project that had I don't know how many change orders on this project. Hundreds, like
Yeah.
200 and
No,
almost 300.
Almost 300,
Right?
yeah.
Manage your way through that. Changes in drawings, changes in specifications, scope of work. A lot of rework from water damage to manage. And then trying to stay on top of the quality and weather outside, a lot of stuff. One thing we didn't talk about, the supply chains. I remember drywalling through these floors when we first started drywalling. The supplier couldn't keep up with the board.
Yep.
Trying to stay ahead of that, and you were organized with getting the right amount of drywall on the job, but it just couldn't get here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. What's your take, Kev?
Overall, it was going good. To me, it took a little longer than it should have. Why? Not quite sure. There's other things,
Lots of factors.
Lots of factors, yeah. So, but yeah, no, it come out nice.
Yeah. Would we say AKS is a better team now than it was when we started?
Oh yeah.
I think so too, right? And we'll take apart a lot of those debriefs and again, AKS always wants to improve, and there's lots to learn on this project.
Yep.
So, as you know, or maybe don't know, I did work fairly closely with Kevin on this one, so it was a good journey.
Yep.
Yeah, and we just want to thank the entire team at AKS for all the support, right? I mean, it's
100%.
and not to mention this is in London, so we're a little bit removed.
Yeah.
So we have the travel component added some complexity, and but I think the AKS team did a good job here.
Yeah.
And thanks to all you guys, office, sites, all the guys that helped us. I think it's a successful project. It looks great.
Yeah.
Kev, thank you.
Thanks.